My name is Evelyn Harper, and if you're expecting some grand introduction about how I'm the hero of this story, let me stop you right there. I'm not a hero, not yet anyway. But maybe that's something we'll figure out together as this unfolds. Right now, though, I'm just someone who's tired. Tired of being overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated. Tired of people thinking they know my worth when all they see is the title on my desk. Secretary. Let me set the stage for you, because context matters here. I work at Crestwood Enterprises, one of those big corporate giants with glass towers that seem to scrape the sky itself. It's the kind of place where everyone wears tailored suits, even if their job boils down to fetching coffee or printing spreadsheets. The air inside always smells faintly like expensive cologne mixed with ambition. It's intoxicating until it suffocates you. I've been working here for nearly 8 years now. 8 long years of answering phones, scheduling meetings, proofreading reports, and doing everything else no one else wants to do. And sure, I don't have an MBA or a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. But I know this company better than anyone. Not because I read reports or sit in boardroom meetings. I wish, but because I listen. People talk around me all the time like I'm invisible, which means I hear things. Important things. Things CEOs probably wouldn't want their secretaries overhearing. And then there's him. Mr. Adrian Caldwell, the CEO of Crestwood Enterprises. He's your textbook definition of success. Sharp jawline, perfectly coiffed hair, and enough confidence to fill a stadium. On paper, he's brilliant, charismatic, visionary, innovative. In person, well, let's just say his charm only extends as far as it benefits him. To him, I'm nothing more than the secretary, a faceless cog keeping his day-to-day operations running smoothly. He doesn't know my name unless he's barking orders at me, and even then, it's always prefaced with you or hey. Like I'm too insignificant to deserve anything else. But none of this really mattered until last week. That's when everything changed. That's when I realized exactly what kind of man Adrian Caldwell truly is, and what lengths I might need to go to make him pay. It started innocently enough, or as innocent as these things ever start. A routine Monday morning turned chaotic almost immediately when Adrian called me into his office before I'd even had a chance to finish my first cup of coffee. His tone was clipped, impatient as usual. "Evelyn," he said without looking up from his laptop screen. At least he remembered my name this time. "Do you know anything about the quarterly audit report?" "Yes," I replied calmly, setting down the stack of folders I'd been carrying. It came across my desk late Friday afternoon. I flagged it for review, since there were discrepancies in the financial projections. He finally glanced up, his expression unreadable. Discrepancies? Yes. I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. This wasn't the first time I'd brought something like this to his attention, and experience had taught me to tread lightly. There are inconsistencies in the revenue forecasts compared to last quarter's actuals. If we submit this version to the board, it could raise questions about our accuracy, or worse, suggest deliberate misreporting. Adrian leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against the edge of his desk. For a moment, I thought he might actually consider what I was saying. Instead, he smirked, a cold, dismissive curve of his lips, and shook his head. "You're just a secretary, Evelyn," he said, leaning forward again. "What do you know about financial projections?" The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Just a secretary. Just. As if everything I'd done over the past 8 years amounted to nothing more than filing papers and answering calls. As if my observations didn't matter because I didn't have 3 letters after my name. "I may not have an MBA," I shot back, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "But I've seen enough reports come through this office to recognize when something feels off. And trust me, this one does." For a split second, I thought I saw a flicker of doubt cross his face, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by irritation. "Look," he said, waving a hand dismissively. "I don't have time for amateur analysis. Send the report to accounting and tell them to fix whatever issues they find. That's their job, not yours." And that was it. The conversation ended as abruptly as it began, leaving me standing there with clenched fists and a sinking feeling in my chest. Because I knew, deep down, that this wasn't going to end well. Crestwood prided itself on transparency and accountability, but Adrian Caldwell thrived on shortcuts and sleight of hand. If those discrepancies weren't addressed properly, it wouldn't just be embarrassing. It could cost the company millions. Or worse, land us in legal trouble. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the nagging sense of dread that followed me everywhere. Every email notification made my heart race. Every phone call felt like it might bring bad news. But instead of sitting idly by while Adrian bulldozed ahead with his plans, I decided to take matters into my own hands. First, I dug deeper into the audit report. Late nights became my norm as I pored over spreadsheets, cross-referencing numbers, and piecing together the puzzle Adrian seemed determined to ignore. What I found confirmed my worst fears. The discrepancies weren't minor clerical errors. They were deliberate manipulations designed to inflate revenue figures. Someone had gone to great lengths to make Crestwood look more profitable than it actually was. Then came the emails. Buried deep within the company server were threads between Adrian and members of the finance team discussing ways to smooth out the numbers. They spoke in code using phrases like creative adjustments and strategic forecasting, but the meaning was clear. These weren't honest mistakes. They were calculated lies meant to deceive shareholders and stakeholders alike. Armed with evidence, I knew I had two choices: stay silent and let Adrian get away with it, or expose the truth and risk everything, including my career. Neither option appealed to me, but letting him win wasn't something I could stomach either. So I started planning. By Thursday afternoon, I'd mapped out a strategy. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I reached out to a few trusted colleagues, discreetly floating questions about the audit process and gauging their reactions. Some shrugged it off, unwilling to rock the boat. Others nodded knowingly, confirming my suspicions that Adrian's reckless behavior wasn't exactly a secret. One person stood out, though: Marcus Hale, a senior analyst in the finance department. Unlike most of the others, Marcus didn't shy away from the topic. In fact, he seemed eager to talk once I mentioned the discrepancies. "I've been trying to flag this for months," he admitted during a quiet lunch meeting in the cafeteria. "But every time I bring it up, it gets shut down. Adrian doesn't want to hear it." "Why haven't you gone to HR?" I asked, lowering my voice. "Or the board?" Marcus gave me a wry smile. "Because blowing the whistle on the CEO isn't exactly a career move, Evelyn. Besides, who would believe me? I'm just another number cruncher." His words stung, not because they surprised me, but because they echoed my own doubts. Who would believe me? I was just a secretary, after all. But sitting there with Marcus, sharing conspiratorial glances and whispered theories, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope. Together, we devised a plan. It was risky, yes, but also clever. We'd gather irrefutable proof, documents, emails, recordings, and present it to the board anonymously. No names, no faces, just cold, hard facts. If we played our cards right, Adrian wouldn't stand a chance. As Friday rolled around, I found myself pacing nervously outside the conference room where the board meeting was being held. Marcus had assured me everything was in place, but that didn't stop my stomach from churning. What if they ignored the evidence? What if Adrian found out it was us? The possibilities swirled endlessly, each one darker than the last. Inside the room, voices rose and fell in heated debate. Through the crack in the door, I caught snippets of conversation. Accusations, denials, demands for explanations. For the first time in years, Adrian Caldwell looked less like a titan of industry and more like a cornered animal. But this was only the beginning. Exposing the truth was step one. Step two, making sure Adrian paid for what he'd done, and ensuring he never underestimated someone like me again. The board meeting stretched on for hours, the tension inside that room thick enough to cut with a knife. I could hear muffled voices, some angry, some incredulous, as they dissected the evidence Marcus and I had so carefully compiled. Adrian's smooth-talking facade was crumbling under the weight of undeniable facts. For once, he couldn't charm or intimidate his way out of trouble. But as satisfying as it was to imagine him squirming in there, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Exposing the fraud was one thing. Holding Adrian accountable was another beast entirely. Crestwood Enterprises wasn't just any company. It was a labyrinth of power plays, backdoor deals, and egos bigger than the skyscraper we worked in. Even if the board believed us and acted on it, they wouldn't take kindly to being made fools of. Someone would have to pay for rocking the boat, and I had no illusions about who they'd target first. I slipped away from the conference room before anyone noticed me lingering outside. My hands were shaking as I returned to my desk, adrenaline coursing through me like wildfire. The day felt surreal, like I was watching myself from a distance. Had I really done this? Had I taken on the untouchable Adrian Caldwell and lived to tell the tale? It didn't feel real yet, but the knot in my stomach reminded me that reality would catch up soon enough. By Monday morning, whispers filled the office like static electricity. People avoided eye contact, pretending to focus intently on their computer screens while secretly glancing around for clues. No official announcement had been made about the audit scandal, but rumors spread faster than wildfire in a place like Crestwood. Everyone knew something big had gone down during Friday's board meeting. Some speculated layoffs were coming. Others whispered about criminal charges. A few even dared to suggest Adrian might be forced out. Adrian himself walked into the office late, his usual swagger replaced by a stiff-backed gait. His jaw was clenched, his eyes scanning the room like a hawk searching for prey. When our gazes met briefly, I felt a chill run down my spine. He didn't say anything, not then, but the look in his eyes promised retribution. For the rest of the day, I kept my head down, burying myself in mundane tasks to avoid drawing attention. But avoiding Adrian wasn't easy when he stormed into my workspace just after lunch. "Evelyn," he barked, slamming a file folder onto my desk. "What is this?" I looked up coolly, refusing to let him see how much his presence unnerved me. "It looks like a folder, Mr. Caldwell." His lip curled at my sarcasm. "Don't play games with me. You know exactly what I'm talking about. How did those documents end up in front of the board?" Ah, so he suspected me. Part of me wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it all. He thought I was the mastermind behind exposing him? If only he knew how little I'd done compared to Marcus. Still, I couldn't afford to tip my hand. "I don't know what you're referring to, sir," I said evenly, folding my hands in my lap. "If there's an issue with the audit report, perhaps you should speak to accounting." His nostrils flared, and for a moment I thought he might explode right there. Instead, he leaned closer, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "Listen carefully, Evelyn. Whatever game you think you're playing, it ends now. You're replaceable. Do you understand me?" Replaceable. The word stung more than I cared to admit. Not because it hurt my feelings, I'd heard worse insults, but because it revealed just how little he valued me. To him, I was nothing more than a cog in his machine, easily swapped out if I caused too much trouble. And maybe I was. But if I was replaceable, so was he. Later that afternoon, I found Marcus waiting for me in the break room. He looked pale, his usual confidence replaced by nervous energy. "They're circling the wagons," he said without preamble. "Adrian's calling in favors, trying to spin this whole thing as a misunderstanding. He's even hinting that someone fabricated the evidence to sabotage him." My stomach dropped. Of course, he would try to turn the tables. Adrian Caldwell didn't get to where he was by admitting defeat. But fabrication? That was dangerous territory. If he managed to discredit the evidence, or worse, frame one of us, we'd be finished. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Marcus hesitated, running a hand through his hair. "We need leverage. Something so solid they can't ignore it, or deny it." Leverage. The word echoed in my mind as I replayed everything I'd learned over the past week. There had to be something Adrian didn't want anyone else to know, something that could bring him to his knees. And then it hit me. The emails. Not the ones discussing the financial discrepancies that was old news now, but the ones buried deeper in the server. Emails detailing illegal offshore accounts, bribes paid to secure lucrative contracts, and other shady dealings I'd stumbled upon while digging for proof. Adrian hadn't just cooked the books. He'd built an empire on lies and corruption. If we exposed that, "We go nuclear," I said firmly, meeting Marcus's gaze. "We give them everything." He stared at me wide-eyed. "Are you sure? This isn't just about Crestwood anymore. This could blow up the entire industry." "I'm sure," I replied, my resolve hardening. Adrian doesn't deserve to walk away from this. Neither does anyone else involved. That evening, I stayed late at the office, poring over every email, document, and record I could find. It was risky, dangerous even, but I couldn't stop now. Every piece of evidence I uncovered felt like another brick in the wall I was building between Adrian and his throne. By midnight, my desk was littered with printouts, sticky notes, and half-empty coffee cups. My eyes burned from staring at the screen for hours, but I didn't care. This was war, and I intended to win. As I packed up to leave, a shadow passed by my office door. I froze, heart pounding, until I realized it was just the cleaning crew. They nodded politely as they wheeled their cart past, oblivious to the storm brewing in my mind. Walking home under the dim glow of streetlights, I replayed Adrian's words in my head. "You're replaceable." He was wrong. Dead wrong. Because replaceability wasn't about titles or degrees. It was about impact. About leaving a mark. And whether he liked it or not, Evelyn Harper was about to leave hers. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, clutching a USB drive loaded with everything I'd gathered. This was it, the moment of truth. Whether it destroyed Adrian or destroyed me, I was ready. But as I stepped off the elevator, I noticed something strange. The reception area was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that precedes chaos. Papers were scattered across the floor, chairs overturned. And then I saw her. Rachel, one of the junior analysts, sitting at her desk with tears streaming down her face. "Rachel?" I asked cautiously, approaching her. "What happened?" She looked up, her eyes red and swollen. They came for Marcus last night. Federal agents. They took him away." My blood ran cold. Took him away? For what? Was this Adrian's doing? Or had something else gone terribly wrong? Before I could ask more questions, Rachel handed me a folded piece of paper. "This was on my desk when I got here. I think it's for you." I unfolded it with trembling hands. Scrawled in messy handwriting were 3 words that sent a jolt of fear straight through me. "They know it's you." The note shook in my hands, but instead of fear, a strange calm settled over me. If they knew it was me, so be it. I had done what was right, exposed the truth, and protected the company from Adrian's greed. I walked straight to the boardroom, USB in hand, and laid out every piece of evidence, every email, every transaction, every lie. This time the board listened. Adrian Caldwell was arrested later that day, his empire crumbling around him. Crestwood began rebuilding under new leadership, one that valued integrity over profit. As for me, I wasn't just the secretary anymore. Promoted to chief compliance officer, I became the voice ensuring no one would ever again underestimate the power of someone willing to stand up for what's right. And yes, Marcus came back too, cleared of all charges, thanks to the mountain of evidence proving his innocence. Together, we rebuilt not just a company but trust. Sometimes, doing the hard thing pays off. For Evelyn Harper, happiness wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, redemption, and knowing she'd made a difference.